so I'm going to begin. So as you know, we want to begin a presentation in a way that kind of creates engagement, gets people interested. So I'm going to do something, I'm not going to use one of the techniques that I talked about before. I'm actually going to start with a puzzle. And I'll tell you why. But the first thing I need, okay, is I don't want anyone to watch me writing this puzzle, because that will give you a hint. So actually, can I ask, can you come?
Oh, yes.
Can you hide me? So you look like that.
Like this?
Yeah, this, and I'm gonna write, you can watch, but you can hide too, because maybe this is good for you also.
Okay. Am I hiding?
Nobody can see, right? Okay, and so now I'm gonna take the jacket, thank you very much, and I'm still hiding. Okay, now I'm gonna explain this. Okay, there's a bottle, okay, there. Now this is a group of images, and there's gonna be a missing, you'll see the space, okay? And in the missing space, I want you to think what belongs, what is the missing shape? Okay, now some of you may have already seen this puzzle before because it's a little bit famous. And some of you are going to see it for the first time, but you will quickly know the answer. And some of you will see it for the first time and you won't know the answer at all. Okay? But it's not an intelligence test. Okay, some people do, some people don't. Don't worry, it doesn't mean you're stupid if you don't. Okay? But if you know because you've seen it before or because you understand, don't say anything yet. Just look, it's okay. Don't tell the answer. Okay. Here's the missing. How many people have seen this puzzle before? This is not your first time. No. Okay. How many people first time, but I know the answer? No one. What is the missing shape? You know, okay, you know. I got it. And you know.
I find the answer, but I don't know how. Okay.
But you know the answer.
Okay. Yes.
And you know. And anybody else? And you're a professor? Yeah. Okay, so student is better. So come and try.
Me?
Yeah.
Okay.
So please use the blue.
So, you write.
You're going to write the answer here. If she really knows, then it should be pretty easy. Based on my Perfect. Okay. You got it. Okay, now good. So some of you, when you see the answer, then you will know. But some of you, even though you see the answer, you still don't know. Okay, but anyway, she got it. Okay, thank you very much. You got it. Okay, so she's right? Now, how many people now you know? Let me see hands. Okay, well, actually, maybe. How many people still do not know? I still don't know. Okay, good. All right. So this is going to be the last hint. Right now, you don't know the answer, but I can do one thing. I can do one action. And I have already done it many times today in the first period. So I can do one simple action and everybody will know. One simple action, everybody knows. That's my last hint. Good, thank you. Okay. One simple action, everybody in this room. Okay, how many people that last hint? So the last hint, now I understand. Now I got it. Now I got it. Let me see. You got it. Okay, from them. Okay, all right. Okay, what am I talking? Does anybody not know now? Everybody's got it, right? Okay, so now, last time I told you that it's good to begin the presentation in an interesting way. And obviously this is an interesting thing, but that's not the reason why I did this. This is actually very, very useful for my presentation because my presentation is going to be about climate change and sustainability and giving presentations about climate change and sustainability. And the puzzle that I gave you now and is actually related. It's a good, there's something about this puzzle that is connected to my topic of climate change and sustainability. So please, with your group, please think, what might that be? What do you think is the connection between this puzzle and climate change sustainability issues, especially presentations about climate change sustainability? Please think about it. With your group.
I don't know.
All right, so I hear some ideas, and it's okay if you're wrong. Don't worry about that. But who's got an idea? What do you think might be the answer? I know you do. Okay, let's wait. Let's see if anybody else. Anybody? Okay, go ahead. What do you think?
Maybe.
Maybe.
And you draw that mark, and he looks at he sees this mark, just mark.
Yeah.
But I can see this figure as
Numbers, as
and so I can see the mark as a figure. And it is a different viewpoint. This thing is a very important thing for sustainability, I think.
no.
No.
But it is a really good idea. Okay. No, what I want, the reason why this is so important, this is related, is because remember now, nothing from here has been erased, right? There has been no change to this part, okay? No change at all. Okay, so that means that from the very beginning, everybody here was looking at, you were looking at 1, 2, 3, and 5. And then later you were looking at 4. So you had these numbers that everybody recognized right in front of your face, but you couldn't see it. Why? Because of the other stuff. Because this stuff over here made it impossible for some of you to see this. Even though it was right in front of you, you were looking at it, but you couldn't see it because of this extra information, this extra stuff that made it confusing, that basically hid the information, right? So when you give a presentation, sometimes some information is too much information. And sometimes some information only confuses. It only makes it more confusing. Okay, so in that situation, we have to think about what to take out. It's even more related to topics like climate change, because some of you might know this, but there are some very powerful groups, for example, in the fossil fuel industry, like oil companies, and they actually try to put that other information. They want you to be confused. They want climate change to be more complicated than it actually is. They want you to think, well, maybe human beings are not doing it. Maybe we're not causing this. Maybe it's not related. So there are groups, a lot of them are funded by the fossil fuel industry, not all, that their job is to confuse. Their job is to make the stuff over here that makes this hard to see. Okay? So with something like that, then we just want to challenge. We want to say, no, that's not right. That's not right. That's, we want to be able to quickly. No. What this report is not a good report. No. That's actually not true. That's not true. Those are not facts. When we see this kind of false information or misinformation, we challenge it, of course. But the other thing is, it's not only people that are trying to confuse us. Even people that really want to help, people that want to give great presentations, they do the same thing. They put too much information. They make it more confusing. Okay? So we don't want to have a situation where we've got this really good information, but we're hiding it because of the other stuff. If the right side is what I want to say and what I want my audience to understand, then I'm not helping when I'm putting this stuff on the left. Okay? So if my job was to make an interesting puzzle, yeah, I succeeded. I made an interesting puzzle. But if my job was to make you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I completely failed because most of you couldn't see. It was a disaster, right? I did a bad job, okay? So that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about this idea that we have to be careful with the information that we present. Because sometimes we think it's right, but it might not be helping our audience at all. Okay, so that's what we want to do is we want to know what is the information that I can present to my audience that is really going to kind of stay on this side. Let's just call this the right side of the. So the right side of the board, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is the information that I really want to share with my audience so that they can understand climate change and sustainability very well. And everything on the left side are the things that I don't really want to share. Maybe I don't have to. I don't want to confuse my audience. So I don't want to tell them things that is not going to help them increase their understanding about the issue and about how important the issue is. Okay, so I hope that's clear. So what are some of the things that do help? Okay, well, there's a group called the Yale Group on Climate Change. It's a website, Yale Group on Climate Change Communication. And what they do, it's connected to Yale University, and they are trying very hard to find the best messages. What are the messages that really help people understand? What works? You know, what's the right side? It works. What's the left side? It doesn't work. Okay. So one of the things that they found that does work is the figure 97%. Okay, so how many people if you think about climate change, does that number 97%, does that sound familiar? Is that anything you've heard before? Anybody? Okay, this is the figure. This is the number of scientists, climate scientists, who agree that climate change is at least partly caused by human activity. Okay, so that's consensus. If you're talking about something scientific, it's very rare to go above 97%. So 97% is basically consensus. If you have 100 climate scientists, 97 of them do feel that their research shows that human industrial activity is causing, at least partly causing, climate change. Okay, so a lot of times people, they don't think that. They think, well, maybe the world is changing, but maybe that's just nature. You know, maybe human activity is not related. But when you tell them that figure, and you can show, no, look at this. This is what climate scientists say. 97 out of 100 agree. We are doing this. There might be other factors, but human industrial activity is one of the major factors. And if you've got 97%, that's consensus. Okay, so that's one of the ideas. That's a figure that changes people's minds. So you can use that. If you're trying to persuade people that industrial activity, human activity is related to climate change, then that figure does work. Okay. Let me continue. Okay, so that would be, for example, when there are people that try to convince, like I said, maybe they are funded by the fossil fuel industry, and they're basically lying to you. And they are telling you that the science does not agree. There's a lot of debate. There's still a lot of debate. And you say, no, actually, there's not. There isn't a lot of debate. In climate science, there's not. In climate science, they agree. Maybe you don't agree, but 97% of climate scientists do. So you challenge, you push back. But then there's the things that we do, the things that we might, maybe we are trying to give a good presentation, but we're still doing stuff. We're still kind of writing on the left side. We're still adding things that we don't. Maybe they're not confusing people, but maybe they just don't have a lot of impact. Okay? So that could be where it's like it's just too much information. It's more than we need. And the reason why this is important, there's something called the dilution effect. And what is it? So this was a recent TED Talk. There's a man, his name is Nero Survananthan. I think he's Indian. You're from Thailand, right? Is Survananthan, is that a Thailand? No, I think he's Indian. Okay, anyway, he's a professor at the London School of Economics, and he gave a TED Talk not last year, 2 years ago, 2021, and he was talking about what he calls the dilution effect. Okay, and so the dilution effect, well, let me just read it. A lot of data, it doesn't stick, it doesn't remain. if we're giving people too much information, we're basically just pushing aside the other. They're replacing one piece of data with another piece of data, and it's not staying inside. So we're basically, when we're giving too much, we're not helping ourselves. Because it becomes dilute. It's like, for example, if I have a glass of whiskey here, and I drink just a little bit, it's going to be very strong. But if I keep pouring this water, then it's not going to have very much taste. And it's the same. If we're just giving them numbers and numbers and numbers, and if the numbers aren't interesting or if the numbers are confusing, then we're not really helping. So one of the ones is that probably a lot of you know that the world is getting warmer, right? Okay, maybe everybody knows that one. The data shows that the planet is warming. How many people know that? You've heard that. This planet is getting warmer pretty much year on year. Yes? Okay. And probably because we're already in 2023, so it probably wouldn't surprise you to find out that 17 of the hottest years ever have all been in the 21st century. Okay? How many people say, yeah, I think I've heard something like that, right? It's pretty much out there. This is information. So does this information help us? Or does it dilute? Because if that's a trend, then that pretty much means that 2022, the data is going to show that it's the hottest. And then probably next year, we'll be looking at 2023, and then we'll be seeing that it's the hottest. So what happens is that people kind of hear, oh, another hottest year, another hottest year, and it starts to lose its impact. Oh, okay, I see there's another one, every year. So we don't really have to tell people information if they maybe already know it. So another one would be like a lot of storms. You've heard things like this hurricane was the largest storm ever recorded. This typhoon was one of the largest typhoons in history, right? But you probably feel like you hear that a lot, right? Another biggest storm? Another biggest storm? They can't all be the biggest storm, right? So if we're going to kind of keep putting out this information, like this was the hottest year, you think, well, 3 years ago, I saw a presentation, and that was the hottest. This was the biggest storm in history. 5 years ago, I saw a presentation, and that was the biggest storm in history. We're not really having a lot of impact with our information. It's not sticking. It becomes diluted. So it doesn't have to be our job to tell people everything that we know about climate change. Some of it should stay over here. It doesn't mean that it's not important. Of course it's important. It's very, very important that the planet is getting warmer. We have to do something about it. My presentation doesn't have to be everything. It just has to be something that makes my audience care more about climate change. And so I'm going to be trying to, if the only thing that I want my audience to see is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, then the only thing I should be showing my audience is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I shouldn't be showing them things that are not going to help them see what I'm like. It might be something like, this was the biggest storm on record. Hottest you've ever read. And your audience might think, I've heard that before. I heard that last year. I keep hearing that. And the more I hear it, the more the possibility of dilution. Doesn't have as much power anymore. It doesn't have the same impact. Okay. So, yeah. Remember that when we present, it's our choice what to present and what not to present. We don't have to present everything. So we need to be carefully thinking about what we do want to present. So we don't want to fall into this dilution effect. And I do want to say that a lot of times Japanese presenters are kind of famous. Japanese presenters tend to try to put as much information as possible into a presentation. They kind of think that's their job. I'm going to give them as much information as possible, then I'm giving a good presentation. But as we can see, that's not actually true. You can give too much information, and that's not a good presentation. So you're responsible. It's your job. Remember from the last topic, from the fourth period, the presenter's responsibility is to present a presentation that is informative, interesting, and memorable. That's your job. Your job is not to tell them everything that there is to know about climate change, especially when a lot of it they already do know. Your audience probably already knows that the planet is getting warmer. They probably already have heard about these really dangerous storms and how storms are getting bigger. So what does work? Okay, so I'll give you some examples now of what does work. So there is a presenter named Paul Shapiro. Okay, Paul Shapiro, he's a sustainability advocate for the sustainability of food. Okay, so probably you've heard about this kind of growing beef in a laboratory. You can grow chicken meat, you can grow pork. You're not growing an animal, you're growing the meat only in a laboratory. How many people have heard of this? You've heard about this thing, right? It's a kind of a new thing, it's a growing thing. So Paul Shapiro, he's a vegetarian, he cares about animals, but he also cares about the planet. And so he is talking about a lot about this lab meat. So the first thing he does is he found out that people don't like it. If you call it lab meat, people don't really want to eat it. Okay? It sounds, it was grown in a lab. So calling it lab meat doesn't really help. So they start calling it clean meat. Clean meat. And why do they call it clean meat? Because we already know about clean energy, right? Everybody knows about clean energy. And everybody thinks clean energy equals good. So if I call it lab meat, people are like, no, thank you. Maybe good for the environment, but I still call it clean meat. And then start getting the association. In the future, we want to have clean energy and we want to have clean meat. That's how we can build sustainability. Okay, so that's one thing. So naming is, that helps. But the other thing is he gives a very interesting thing. So he talks about chicken. Probably most of you eat it a lot. Okay. And I don't know if you know, but it actually takes a lot of water. To raise a chicken to a grown age so that it can make eggs or that you can kill it and eat the meat, you need to use a lot of water. Okay, you need to clean the chicken. The chickens, they poop. You need to wash the meat very thoroughly. So you're using a lot of water. So he gives an information that I think is pretty amazing. Now he says he relates the one chicken dinner to how many showers a person would need to take. So how many human beings taking a shower, how many times do you need to take a shower to equal the amount of eating one chicken at a meal with maybe your family? Okay. And how many showers do you think it is? Do you think it's maybe 10 showers? Maybe more? Maybe 30 showers? He did the data. One chicken, 6 months. Half a year of showers. Now, some people don't take a shower every day. Some people they go to the gym, so they take 2 showers every day. Some people take 2 showers every week. Everybody's different. But the average amount of water that the average person uses to take a shower for 6 months, that's how much water goes into the growing, the feeding, the washing, the cleaning, the packaging of one chicken. And of course, you continue that, and so that means that 2 chicken dinners is a whole year of showers. And many people probably eat chicken 3 or 4 times a week, right? Probably everybody here can remember your last chicken meal, right? Maybe it was lunch today, maybe it was dinner yesterday. How many people can easily remember the last time you ate chicken? I think probably better than that. I think with sometime this week, probably, or last week. Okay, so that number is that number has impact. If we know that 1 chicken dinner is the same as 6 months of showers, then that information is going to have a lot of impact. First of all, because it's very, very shocking. It's a shocking thing. Second, because it's very personal. It comes down to my personal choices, right? There's nothing more personal than taking a shower. I take all my clothes off, I'm naked, it's just me in the water. That's as personal as it gets. And that is my personal choice. I want to take showers, and I want all of you to take showers. If I'm riding a crowded train, I want everybody to be taking showers, right? I would rather everybody gives up chicken and keep taking showers, because everybody taking showers is much more important to me, right? And I think everybody would agree. So that kind of getting it to be personal, that is information that is going to stay on the right side of the equation. The other one that I would come back to, of course, because I told you from the last presentation, if the world was a good place. And remember, I said the same thing, that what this does is it kind of takes it out of the head. So we have so much information that we kind of keep it in our head, and it just stays up here in the brain. And that's kind of what it does. It just stays in the brain. But this, if the world was a village of 100 people, this is a very effective way to move it into our heart, to kind of get that heart connection. Now I'm thinking about people, I'm thinking about the world. Same with this shower, 6 months of showers. It has impact because we all know how important it is to keep our own bodies clean. We want to take showers. We don't want to stop. But it takes 6 months of showers to just get 1 chicken all the way grown so that I can eat it. That can maybe make people change their mind. Maybe they would think a little bit more. So like, Paul Shapiro, he wants people to think about eating lab meat, not lab meat, clean meat, because clean meat takes a lot less water. It doesn't even take 10% of the water that it takes to grow a real chicken, much smaller. So he wants people to start eating clean chicken. Then people might see this, and they might start to think, okay, I want to help the planet. I want there to be a good future for my children. Maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll start thinking about eating laboratory. Or maybe I'll eat less chicken. Maybe I'll still eat it. I love it. But maybe I'll cut down. Maybe I'll reduce. These sort of decisions. they can make an impact. People can change. We can change the world. One mind, heart at a time. Okay, so what I want you to do now with your groups, think about your topics. Think about your field of study, the things that you are studying. And think if there's any way that you could present that information in a way that makes it more personal. That it could have some relationship to people's lives, the people that you are talking to, the things that your audience cares about. Just think. I know it's hard, but it's worth it to try anyway. So think about your topic. Think about, for example, disabled people, people with eye disabilities, whatever it is, you know, what your topic with the flooding and so forth, river management. How could you take that information and make it kind of something that a person can relate to at a personal level? Please think about it. See if you can pick some idea.
It's doing Friday. Yes. All right. So I know that's a difficult challenge, but I hope that there were at least some ideas, even if they're not full, maybe the beginning of an idea. But did anybody come up with anything? Anybody have anything they could share? We could maybe help you develop it. Maybe if you have the beginning of an idea together, we could make it more. Any ideas? Okay, sure.
Yeah, maybe I began the presentation by asking about in your family, do you have any family members who are disabled or even an elders? And imagine in time of disaster, difficulty.
Right, that would be a good one. Because almost everybody knows somebody, right? And another good one maybe would even be to do an exercise. You know, like you could even hand out blindfolds, and then you could have give everybody the challenge of kind of moving to the front of the room and then back again. And you'd have to guide them because if somebody falls, they'll hurt themselves. But you could give them a simple exercise to do blind, and then they would understand how difficult it is for blind people, for people with eyesight problems, because you would make it real to them. That's what some people face every day. This was very difficult, wasn't it? Yes, it was very difficult. But some people face this problem every day. So that would be something. Anybody else?
No? Okay, but I'm gonna keep talking about, actually, and I'm gonna read, this is what I wrote, so I apologize, but I think it's just gonna work better if I read it to you. So it's always good to keep in mind that your audience is a group of individuals, and each of them is pretty much living in their own unique reality. We spend most of our time thinking about ourselves. So we think about what we're concerned about, we think about our loved ones, and we think about that much more because we are human beings than even really, really big things like climate change. You know, we don't think about climate change as much as we think about our plans for the weekend. It's not bad, it's just who we are, okay? Most people are living in their own personal reality. And that's the situation. So for the length of your presentation, while you are presenting, you want to try to give your audience, you want to let them give you entrance into their world. You want them to invite you in, because then they will pay attention to you and hopefully they'll learn something. So the best way to do that is to make it personal. Okay? Get them to say, okay, please tell me what you know. Tell me something about myself. I don't want to stop taking showers. I'm not going to stop taking showers. So maybe I'll eat a little bit less chicken or a little bit less. Maybe. You can't tell them. But you can kind of ask the question and put the information that makes it personal. So that brings us to the next topic about how to present on the sustainability crisis. And that is, we have to be willing to challenge our audience. Otherwise, our presentation is going to be meaningless. This is really true, okay? We don't want to. We don't want to challenge our audience. But the topic is climate change. So we kind of have to, because sustainability is a huge, huge, huge issue. And every one of us is going to contribute to the negative or the positive. Okay, and there are some very clear choices about energy, diet, and so forth that all of us are making that as a collective is causing environmental problems, environmental crisis. Human society is a collection of choices. That's really what civilization is. It's like a continuing, ongoing record of the choices that humans have made for thousands of years. And the human species is about 200,000 years old. We had a big change about 12,000 years ago. That was when we became agrarian. That was when we developed agriculture, right? About 12,000 years ago. We had an even bigger change in some ways in terms of climate. About 300 years ago, what happened? 300 years? Anybody? Something called the Industrial Revolution, right? Now we call it the Industrial Revolution, but we could really call it the Industrial Experiment. Where we kind of decided, well, what can we do to this planet? We're going to start doing things to this planet. We're going to start burning a lot of coal. We're going to start pulling a lot of oil out of the ground. We're going to start making electricity. We're going to build a lot of cars. I wonder what's going to happen. We didn't really know. So this was a big, we basically we started conducting a gigantic experiment about 300 years ago, and we didn't know what was going to happen. But we know now. So if you go back to about 120 years ago, Henry Ford He did a big experiment. He experimented replacing horses with cars on a massive scale. Okay, there were cars before Henry Ford, but he was the person that basically made cars available. He had the Model T, and he made it available so that there were millions of cars were sold. It was an experiment. What would happen? He could see all the good things. Horses are, they're a lot of work, and they can't go very far. They can't travel between one city to the next city. They can't deliver things as good. Horses are a transportation method, and Henry Ford had a better transportation method. So that was his experiment, and he made a lot of money, and he was very successful. But now we know that cars are not the greatest thing for the planet. They're not really very good for the planet. He didn't know then, but we know now. And another thing that Henry Ford did, same time with the Model T, is that he stopped research into electric cars. Before the Model T, electric cars and gasoline cars were about the same popular. We had a lot of gasoline cars connecting the cities, but inside the cities, we had a lot of electric cars. And it was a pretty good solution. But then Henry Ford thought, well, I don't want to spend money developing electric cars and developing gasoline cars. That's too much money. I want to be able to keep my prices down so that many people can buy my cars. I want to reduce my R&D. So he basically stopped electric cars, and he built only gasoline. And he was so successful that all of his rivals did the same thing. So from about 1920 until about 1970, the first energy crisis, we lost 50 years of research and innovation on electric cars, which we now know can be very helpful to making the world a more sustainable place. Does that mean that Henry Ford was a bad person? Of course not. It just means it's an experiment. We didn't know what was going to happen. Another great example of just about the same time was that oil began to replace coal burning. And at the time, oil was seen as just the perfect solution because coal is very dirty. It was turning the skies black. Many children were dying of lung disease in big cities like New York and London because a small child's body is still developing and they couldn't handle all of that smoke from the air. So lung disease was a huge problem in big cities for child mortality. So then oil burned cleaner. And everybody thought, it's perfect. We've done it. We've found a solution. But we all know now that there's a downside there too. That oil means a lot of CO2 emissions, heats the planet. It's not as safe as we thought. So again, we are conducting, ever since the Industrial Revolution, 300 years ago, we've been doing this gigantic industrial experiment. What can we do to our world? And then what will happen? And the results are starting to come. We're getting more information all the time, and the information is not very good. It's not safe. What we are doing is not safe. What we are doing is, in this industrial revolution, industrial experiment, we've kind of built a take, make, break society. And it's not sustainable. So we take what we can, we take oil from the ground, we take trees from the forest, we take things, we take coal, we take glass, we make something, we take the materials, we take the precious metals, we make the smartphone, then eventually it runs out, it breaks, usually goes to a landmine, landfill, we don't really recycle, we can't recycle most of them. Some things we can recycle, but a lot of things we can't. So we have this sort of take it, make something with it. Then when you can't use it anymore, then break it, or it breaks by itself. And this make break is it's not sustainable. This is a not sustainable way to live. And why do we know that it's not sustainable? Because the results of our industrial experiment are coming to us. We're getting the results. We're getting the things like the hottest years, the bigger storms, the hotter years, the rising oceans. That's the research. That's the data that we're collecting from this 300-year industrial experiment that we have been conducting. And so it's time to change. We have to change. Maybe we don't want to, but we have to. So making it so challenging. It's not a good presentation if it just makes the people think, I can just keep doing whatever I want. Yeah, it's an interesting presentation, but I'm not going to change. Then we're not really doing anything. We're not really presenting about sustainability. We're just kind of creating a sort of a fantasy instead. We're giving people things to think about, but not giving them suggestions about what to do. We should. We should give people suggestions about what to do. Maybe we should eat less chicken. Maybe we should not buy a car. Maybe we should use public transportation. Maybe we should. Maybe we shouldn't buy fast fashion. Maybe. Right? Because these things make a difference. These things do have impact on the planet. Okay. So that again is going to take us back to one of the biggest fundamental things, which is diet. Okay. Now, you're probably thinking, why is he talking about diet so much? Is he trying to make us all turn into vegans? Does he want us to become vegetarian? Okay, no, I don't. You know, I like meat just as much as you, but we need to know what the facts are. So if I were to draw you a picture of Earth, and this is North America, and this is South America, and then over here we've got the whole Asian continent, and we've got Australia over here, and we've got the giant continent of Africa, right? So pretty much this much land is being used to sustain meat-based agriculture. That's how much land it needs for 8 billion people to eat a lot of meat. So probably nobody believes this. That's too much. That's too much land. But if you think about it, you would think, well, first of all, it's agriculture, right? So any kind of agriculture, even if we are all eating just lettuce, we're going to use a lot of land, right? We need a lot of land to grow food, okay? That's any kind. That's beans, that's mame, whatever. But everybody here, I think, knows that it takes a lot more land to grow animals for food. That's something that everyone recognizes, everyone agrees? Because you're growing plants for the animals to eat, and then you're eating the animals. So you're kind of putting this middle thing. But not only that, you're growing a whole animal. But we don't eat the bones. We don't eat the brain. We don't eat the stomach. All we want is the muscle. Okay. But we need this land to grow the body. The cow wants a whole body. It doesn't want to just be meat. We use a lot of land. And if the population keeps growing, 8 billion becomes 10 billion, then even that is not going to be enough. That's not enough land if we continue the meat-based diet. Okay. So this is something that people need to know and then make their choice. So it doesn't mean you should stop eating meat. I eat meat, I eat less. I eat less meat now than I ever do. I have definitely reduced, the more I learn about this, the more I realize the impact of meat, and I have reduced, but I still eat. And that would be something that I would suggest. Okay? So I'm not saying you have to tell people, you don't have to tell them what to do, but you do need to be willing to challenge them because the topic is so important. Sustainability is not a small thing. It's a huge thing. And so if you, as a presenter about climate change, about sustainability, are not willing to challenge your audience, then you really shouldn't be presenting because it's useless, it's meaningless, there's no meaning to it. Okay? Then, of course, people make their own decisions, they decide, but you're helping them, you're giving them what they need to decide. You're not hiding anything so that they can make their own choices. You respect people, respect their choices, but give them what they need to know. And that means challenge them. Do you need to buy a new car? Do you need to drive to work instead of take a train? Do you need to eat beef every day? Do you understand what those activities do to this planet? That's sustainability presentations. Okay, so let's stop there. And again, I want you to think about your topics, your fields. Is there any way that you might be able to challenge your audience? Something that maybe they don't really want to hear. Maybe they're not so comfortable, but it's related to your topic and it's something they need to know. Just think about it. Just think if anything comes up. Is there any point that you might be willing to challenge your audience about the thing that you're studying, your topic, your field, your major? Because in the future, you're going to give presentations about it. So go ahead, discuss that.
Okay. Anybody have anything they would like to share? Any ideas? Don't be shy.
That's very clear for me, but
No.
is that very clear? I don't know, maybe.
Okay, but you may be willing to do that though, right? You understand that it's important to do that, if the topic is important. Like, for example, I mean, the Congo is a perfect example, because Congo, it's a tragic situation, you know, I mean, I know that there have probably been some improvements, but there's things like child labor, there's really bad conditions for the workers, right? And they're helping to make some of the most valuable things in the world. Yeah, but they are not getting rich, right? That's the last thing that's happening to them. They're being exploited. They are being exploited. So yeah, that's an uncomfortable topic, but if you could present, you know, about cell phones, or do we really need to buy the next, every iPhone, every time there's a new iPhone, do we have to buy the next one?
In this kind of way, I want to put it, because I mean, the conflict, nowadays we have a land conflict. This land conflict was very local before we had a problem of minerals and everything. Now this land conflict becoming global, because now we have other actors getting into the conflict. So this conflict, the city that I'm learning is Goma City. This conflict, when you get it in global level, it's making these cities vulnerable to volcanic eruption. So when we study 1997, all the volcanic eruption, we see that the city is getting vulnerable to this volcanic aspect because of the globalization of the conflict. So these connections, maybe we want to really show to people that when you use your smartphone, when you use your Game Boy, when you use everything, know that there is cities, villages in Congo, they are getting vulnerable against volcanic eruption because of the created conflict. We cannot manage the city very well, and yes, it's this kind of way, but it's not clear now.
But no, but that's really, you know, that's exactly what it is. That's great, making it personal. Because, you know, like, why do people, what's the biggest reason why people buy a new phone? Usually it's because they want the newest camera. That's the number one reason why people buy a new phone, is because they want to have the latest camera technology. Everybody loves to take pictures. Everybody wants to be on Instagram. But the pictures are already good, right? I mean, your cell phone camera is getting better and better all the time. But if you're not a professional photographer, you don't have to have the best. If your phone still works, you can keep using it, right? You don't need to buy it just because one feature like the camera has improved. Apple is happy, but there are consequences. There are things that real people are affected by with all of these choices, right? So that's exactly what I'm talking about. So thank you for that. And yeah, that's what I'm saying. Again, and your job is not to say, don't buy Apple product. That's not your job. You're not a protester. You're not an activist. You're a sustainability presenter. But now we need to actually be doing that, because that's how important sustainability is. Okay.
Other things based on the electric car. Congo has 60% of cobalt. Electric cars are, now people see electric cars as a clean environment, but the battery, they use cobalt. You know, in the world, we can see that it's a clean solution, but the impact in other parts of the world is really bad. Really, maybe something.
Excellent point. Because see, remember when I was talking about when Henry Ford decided that he was not going to create any more electric cars, he was going to exclusively build gasoline cars so that he could consolidate his business. He basically stopped the world from innovating. So from 1920 until 1970, the first oil shock, that's 50 years of innovation, kind of battery improvements.
all of the different things that we could have electric cars that are much safer, much better for the environment right now if we had not lost those 5 decades. But again, that wasn't Henry Ford's fault. He wasn't trying to harm the world, but the things we do have consequences. If we just remember, we are conducting an experiment on the planet, and we only have one planet. This, if we get the experiment wrong, we don't have another planet to experiment on. We have this one, and it's our home. So we have to remember that we're doing an experiment. Electric cars is a great example of that. Yes, they are not a perfect solution. But on the other hand, if for 50 years we had been continually developing them, we'd have much better electric cars right now than we do. So thinking about the kind of the broader story, I think is very important. And telling that story is important. Trust your audience. Give them these challenging ideas. So we've looked at first of all, I started with the puzzle, and so the first point I gave you was, don't give unnecessary information. Don't tell people stuff that's going to basically hide your message. Forget about the left side. Think about what do I need? What do I really want to say? That's the right side. What do I maybe don't need to say? That's the left side, and I want to embrace that, just like I did. I just and then everybody saw it. Everybody saw 1, 2, 3. Okay? Make it personal. Bring it into people's lives. How many showers do you take every 6 months? A village of 100 people. Number 3, be willing to challenge. Okay. The next thing that I would say is do not make your presentation solely about economic opportunities. So don't talk about climate change as if this is a great business investment opportunity. It might be. I mean, it's true that people might make a lot of money investing in, for example, batteries, improving batteries. People might make a lot of money from investing in clean meat. There is money to be made from the solutions to climate change. But if that's your goal, if you need the planet to be in great danger in order for you to make a lot of money, something is very wrong. And I don't mean it's wrong with the person. There's nothing wrong with investing, right? But there's something wrong with our society. If we take this major issue that is going to affect everybody's lives and your children's lives, and then we just turn it into, okay, well, how can I make the most money? What should I invest in? Should I invest in lab needs? Should I invest in batteries? How can I profit from climate change? How can I profit from the sustainability crisis? So yes, you can. There are ways. But if that's your message, I don't think that's a very good message. Don't be telling people how to make money out of sustainability, how to make money out of climate change, what are the business opportunities? That's the focus. I don't really think that's helpful. That's not, to me, that's not real sustainability. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't tell people things like, clean meat is a growing industry. Maybe they choose to invest. Improving the quality of batteries so that extending the life of a battery. It's a great thing. If people invest a lot of money and it needs a lot of money, then that will help the industry get better. But the focus should not be on the money. Don't make it into simply an investment opportunity. Don't turn the climate crisis primarily into
some people might disagree with me. Some people might think, well, money is the most important thing about, and everybody cares about money. So if we tell people that they can make money by investing in these things, then that's the only way we're going to reach them. Some people might feel this way. I personally feel that we're talking about something so important, so crucial, and right now even so dangerous, that if we just make it about a new way to make money, like Bitcoin, you know, I can invest in Bitcoin and I can invest in clean energy and I can invest, then I think we're missing it. I think we're really missing the point if that's the focus. So again, it doesn't hurt to inform people that these are growing industries. These industries are going to grow. So you might think about supporting them with your investments. But your purpose should not be to make a lot of money from climate change. I can't see that. I think it's just the priority is wrong if that's what the focus is. So I cannot recommend you to make your presentations about investment opportunities. Now, on the other hand, you know, like speaking to you and returning to Congo. Congo is a country that needs money, and there's nothing wrong with telling invest in Congo, and we can do a lot of things with that money. But in some ways, it's really bad, right? Because the money goes into Congo to develop the industries, but it doesn't always help the people, right? So that's the kind of thinking that I think is really wrong. So to me, it's sort of just really off to make the focus about economic opportunities from climate change. They're there, but they should not be the focus. Okay, by the way, how much time do we have? Maybe 20 more minutes?
No, 10 minutes.
10 minutes, okay.
12 minutes.
All right. Wow, I should have timed, okay. So those would be my main 4 points. And then let me just look at my notes and think, okay. I think basically that's what I wanted to say. But I do want to quote. So this is from Alina Elizabeth Johnson. She gave a really wonderful talk, because I know a lot of this stuff is very challenging. We live in a dangerous world. But she gave a presentation, and her presentation was about, her name is Ayana Elizabeth Johnson, and the name of her TED Talk is Be Motivated by Hope. Oh, no, sorry. That's not the name. That's not the name of the talk, but this is her quote. Be motivated not by hope, but by a desire to be useful. Not by hope. Maybe we don't know what's going to happen. We might not win. The world might become a lot worse. The temperatures might go way up. We might not be able to stop it. But we're going to try. We're going to try to be useful. So let me go ahead and continue with her quote. She said, averting climate catastrophe is the work of our lifetimes. In some ways, it is too late. It's too late for all the animal species that have already disappeared. It's too late for all the victims of floods and fires and natural disasters that could have been averted. It's too late for everyone who passed away from lung diseases brought about by unbreathable air. It is too late, but that should not cause us to lose hope. It should make us realize there are no guarantees of a solution. We can't simply trust in human ingenuity and the miracle of innovation, but we should be motivated not by hope, but by a desire to be useful. And I think that's the best thing. If I'm going to give a talk about climate change, it's because I want to be useful. I want to contribute something. I want to help this world. I want to do what I can to help build the solutions that we need. Okay, so thank you very much. Stop there. I hope that was useful to you. Interesting, I hope. Any quick questions at the end?
Maybe because we have presentation of and our seminar and sometimes we have only 15 minutes presentation.